Jin Huk loomed menacingly, casting a baleful gaze upon Uriel. With a resounding stomp that sent tremors through the floor and a foreboding aura enveloping him, Jin Huk warned her to choose her words wisely. Uriel then inquired if he knew about the consequences of reaching the 999th floor of the tower. Still wearing an enraged expression, Jin Huk responded, suggesting that one might become a voyeuristic transcendent, akin to a deity or demon overseeing the tower's affairs. Uriel referred to these beings as the angels, but paused and amended her statement, noting that the four royalties had been consumed by their arrogance, attempting to monopolize their positions and eliminating those who sought to conquer the tower except themselves. In bewilderment, Jin Huk mumbled, "Select and kill?" Uriel asked if he knew about it. Jin Huk, now convinced that the mastermind was before him, furiously threatened to deliver her head to where his wings resided. He seized her by the neck with shadowy hands, prompting her to explain that she became wingless a decade ago for opposing the select and kill order on a particular climber whose name was Death Star. Jin Huk, upon hearing this revelation, released his grip, awkwardly acknowledging his improper behavior and offering an apology. Uriel assured him that it was all right and accepted the burden of her actions. Jin Huk, understanding the distinction between the wingless and the angels, refrained from venting his anger on her. Uriel expressed her gratitude for his understanding and suggested that, like them, there might be other victims of the four royalties, encouraging Jin Huk to welcome them if they approached. Jin Huk agreed, realizing their potential as allies in the war against the four royalties. He then inquired about where to meet her again, and she directed him to the wingless hideout on the 9th floor of Dream City. Jin Huk remarked that the 190th floor seemed significantly lower than he had expected. Uriel explained that the higher the floor, the more influence the four royalties held, and the floors from 200 to 300 were under his territory. Jin Huk realized that he had almost forgotten that this territory was under the reign of the martial Emperor Tess, who ruled over the floors from 200 to 300. Setting up their base within his territory meant a higher chance of the four royalties meeting their destruction. When Uriel asked if she could get dressed, Jin Huk agreed, saying, "Of course." As she prepared to put on her coat, he couldn't help but notice her feathers. He inquired if there would be a trace if she gave him something, and she explained that due to the pursuit of the angels, she could only bring herself. With a creepy grin, Jin Huk assured her that it was enough. Uriel, however, looked at him with disdain, asking, "You were that type of person?" Panicking, Jin Huk clarified that he didn't mean that, and only wanted some of her feathers. Uriel sighed with relief and mentioned that if it was that, she could give him some because her feathers grow back. As she removed some for him, Jin Huk inwardly acknowledged his relief, thinking he'd asked carefully because he believed they didn't grow back. After giving him some of her feathers, she cautioned him not to show the feathers outside, as angels had a skill for locating the feathers' owner. Jin Huk assured her he planned to consume them. Her mood shifted and she teased, "So you were that type of person." Jin Huk insisted he wasn't that type, and she trusted him, telling him to get going and that she'd see him next time in Dream City. Jin Huk agreed, promising to meet her expectations. She said she'd look forward to it and then disappeared. Jin Huk sat down, and Vulcan asked if he was going to eat the wing now. Jin Huk, filled with excitement, confirmed this and wondered if he could endure the angel's divine power and what abilities he might gain. Vulcan, resigned since the third poison told him to do as he pleased, then told Miho not to eat anything she found, much like Jin Huk. Jin Huk proceeded to eat the wing, but something unexpected happened. His entire body began to emanate a golden aura as he screamed in pain. Vulcan, accustomed to these bizarre situations, simply shrugged and went on to give Miho an airplane ride while Jin Huk struggled to breathe. Jin Huk's screams of pain echoed in the background, but Vulcan paid little attention. Suddenly, Jin Huk found himself waking up in the mind realm. Confused, he asked himself if he had fainted. Realizing that he was now in this unusual place, he contemplated whether his body had decided that consuming divine power was too much, meaning he had to win here. As he got to his feet, Jin Huk turned around and was met with the sight of an enormous, glistening golden waterfall. That waterfall embodied the divine power surging within him, resembling a colossal mountain. Jin Huk silently expressed relief that he didn't have to engage in a battle with Uriel. Even if he had emerged victorious and devoured her essence, the thought was too unsettling to dwell upon. Suddenly, the water began to surge, and it dawned on him that the waterfall was more than just a mere illusion. He needed to break through this cascade of divine power before it seized control of his mental realm. He pondered his options and with a sly grin mused, "Well, there's only one way, isn't there?" Back in the tangible world, Vulcan's attention shifted to Jin Huk, observing that he was employing spirit power, but there was something distinct this time. Jin Huk was utilizing his own soul as the substance for this spirit power. Miho appeared concerned, yet Vulcan reassured her, expressing faith in Jin Huk because his actions indicated he had a plan. Vulcan eagerly anticipated what surprises Jin Huk had in store. Returning to Jin Huk's struggle, he was witnessed sucking the divine power through a conduit. After a few moments, he admitted, "This isn't it either." To encapsulate his spirit power imbued with divine essence, he reasoned that crafting an image of himself consuming it, given that he had acquired the power through gluttony, would be the right approach. However, he felt that failure was looming if he continued down this path. If the divine power overwhelmed him, he'd either lose consciousness permanently or have to relinquish this newfound power. Nonetheless, with unwavering determination, he questioned himself, calming his nerves by by acknowledging that it was a creation of his own soul. Suddenly, a shadowy figure began to materialize, and a massive shadowy monster materialized beside Jin-Huk. Sporting a devious grin, Jin-Huk declared, "Now this is the real deal." He proceeded to manipulate the monstrous entity, which began to consume the golden divine power bit by bit. Jin-Huk maintained his menacing smirk, repeatedly chanting, "More, more, more," as his shadowy creation voraciously devoured the divine power. Back in the real world, Jin-Huk was seen smirking, and near him, Bao wore a satisfied smile. Bao began to clap with excitement, noting that Jin-Huk's actions seemed to mirror his own. He welcomed the emergence of the Demon King of Gluttony. In a brief flashback, Jin-Huk had mentioned the greedy dragon, and the Gold Lich had identified this entity as Bao. To them, Bao was a neutral deity with a penchant for scheming. True to his name, he possessed an insatiable greed, indulging in various species and desiring even more. "He's an insatiable dragon with an appetite for everything in this world, aptly named the Greedy Dragon." The Gold Lich had just started explaining the enigmatic history of this greedy dragon when the flashback abruptly ceased, bringing us back to the present where Jin-Huk harnessed his greed and completely consumed the divine power. In the tangible world, Vulcan roused Jin-Huk from his trance, and Miho, elated to see him awake, eagerly embraced him with a hug. Jin-Huk assured her he was back. Vulcan couldn't resist asking if Jin-Huk had succeeded or failed, ready to poke fun if it were the latter. With a smirk, Jin-Huk dismissed Vulcan's hopes of mockery, affirming his success as he exhibited his newfound divine energy merged with the dark power. Jin-Huk explained that despite its current small size, he had developed an organ capable of generating divine power. He turned to Vulcan for his opinion, asking if he was content with this result. Vulcan privately marveled at the extraordinary outcome, but also recognized the lurking danger. Jin-Huk, not yet strong enough to withstand a coordinated assault from the four royalties, was vulnerable in his current incomplete state. Facing off against the four royalties could prove fatal. A few days later, on the 10th floor hunting ground, Jin-Huk's spirit soldiers were busy dispatching numerous orcs. Suddenly, they encountered an unusual-looking orc that managed to take down one of the spirits. Jin-Huk and Vulcan watched from above, and Jin-Huk uttered, "It has begun," with a growing pile of orc corpses behind him. The orc skillfully cleaved through the spirit soldiers, leaving them bisected on the ground. A sudden radiant glow emanated from the wound, leaving the orc in awe. The source of the golden light was a celestial spirit soldier. Jin-Huk turned to Vulcan and inquired about his experience with the new Holy Spirit soldier. Vulcan shared that it performed as expected, serving as the exclusive healer for both the undead and spirit soldiers. It completely nullified the typical necromancer's drawback of resource wastage due to weak endurance during summoning. Nevertheless, given its divine nature, it had a propensity for seeking enlightenment. Jin-Huk commented on the situation, noting that they could only be cautious in dealing with it. Meanwhile, Miho indulged in consuming the orcs. Vulcan remarked that it seemed like she had finished her meal. Jin-Huk inquired whether it was enjoyable, observing the quest notification displaying that Miho had devoured 892 raw livers out of 999. Jin-Huk contemplated how he had unexpectedly earned the Orc Slayer title for the second time. He then opened his status window, revealing his traits, stats, name, skills, subclass, class, and physical condition. Inwardly, he acknowledged that his divine power had grown over the past few days, increasing by 2, although with a base value of 3, it might not be exceptionally helpful. However, he could resort to it in emergencies. Vulcan asked Jin-Huk what they should do next. Jin-Huk responded that they should proceed to meet Hendrik. Upon returning to the city, Jin-Huk inquired with Vulcan about the accuracy of the information. Vulcan affirmed that Hendrik was indeed not ascending the tower, seemingly waiting for someone. Inwardly, Jin-Huk deduced that Hendrik, a dragon slayer inhabiting a dragon's body, piqued his interest. If Hendrik remained stuck on the 10th floor, there had to be a significant reason. Just like Uriel, Hendrik might be anticipating something after listening to a revelation from the gods and demons. Vulcan informed Jin-Huk that they had arrived, and once they left the alley, they would encounter Hendrik. Jin-Huk stepped out of the alley and found himself surrounded by a multitude of people. Upon closer inspection, he spotted a man with horns and red eyes enveloped in a crimson aura. Considering their approach, Jin-Huk asked Vulcan if they should approach Hendrik directly. Vulcan, cautious of the situation, inquired whether Jin-Huk was willing to engage with Hendrik as he might not be the person Hendrik was expecting, potentially leading to a deadly confrontation. Jin-Huk, sporting a mischievous grin, proposed settling the matter through combat. Vulcan responded, dubbing Jin-Huk insane and suggesting that he go on ahead without him. Jin-Huk taunted Vulcan, stating that he knew Vulcan was fearful due to a past encounter where he got quite battered in a fight with Hendrik. Vulcan retorted, "Scared? Who got battered?" defending his pride as the first spirit master. Vulcan asserted he'd never run away. Jin-Huk, however, urged him not to lie, mentioning how he had fled looking worse for wear. Hendrik suddenly closed his eyes, and they were transported into a flashback where he was told that the one who could fulfill his wish would appear on the 10th floor and asked to wait. Returning to the present, Vulcan and Jin Huk faced Hendrik. Jin Huk asked if he was Hendrik, to which Hendrik replied in the affirmative, adding that he had been wondering when Jin Huk would approach him. Hendrik then recognized Vulcan as a familiar face, causing Vulcan to tremble. Hendrik abruptly declared that Jin Huk had passed, prompting Jin Huk to express his displeasure with Hendrik's initial judgment, though he chose to let it slide since Hendrik said that he passed. Hendrik noted the prying eyes around them and requested that Jin Huk follow him. They reached what seemed like a dead-end alley, leaving Jin Huk puzzled about why they had ventured so far. Jin Huk pointed out the many alleys in the square. Suddenly, Hendrik placed his hand on the wall, and a portal materialized. He entered it, and Jin Huk informed Vulcan that they would follow Hendrik, stepping through the portal. Inside, Jin Huk questioned Hendrik about their location, to which Hendrik explained it was a subspace, a hidden space on the 10th floor where the eyes of the gods and demons held no power. Jin Huk contemplated that he could unmistakably sense that something had weakened. Hendrik posed a question, expressing his intention to exterminate all the dragons who had slain him within the tower. He asked Jin Huk if he was prepared to join him in achieving this goal. Jin Huk responded with a smirk, remarking that Hendrik's ambition seemed rather petty for a man of his stature. Incensed, Hendrik demanded clarification about what Jin Huk meant by petty. Vulcan intervened, privately informing Jin Huk that Hendrik was a formidable monster on a different level, and questioned why he was provoking him. Jin Huk telepathically labeled Vulcan a loser, and assured him that he had a plan in mind. Addressing Hendrik, Jin Huk acknowledged that he might not fully understand Hendrik's situation, but he could grasp how Hendrik had become the way he was. Jin Huk expressed his certainty that Hendrik was aware that the culprits who had wronged them weren't limited to the 4 royalties. Jin Huk stated that he didn't care why Hendrik had become fixated on dragons, but declared it insufficient for him to form an alliance. He proclaimed his intention to exact vengeance on all those who had wronged him, irrespective of whether they were the 4 royalties or anyone else. In essence, Hendrik's goal was too little for Jin Huk to ally with him. Hendrik, in response, inquired if Jin Huk genuinely planned to confront the 4 royalties.